Hardy poet most of the time in my naughty pine garret. Emily Dickinson, who writes longer lines. So this is a slightly overwhelming crowd tonight. I have to thank Christopher and Toni for having me here. I'm so honored to be part of Ghost Town Poetry's launch in this fabulous new venue, the lovely Angst Gallery in downtown Vancouver. It's more than fitting, I think, that I'm reading in a venue with this particular name, because so much of my writing of late, maybe always, seems rooted in that word's definition, which is, to refresh your memory, a feeling of deep anxiety about the human condition or the state of the world in general. Amen. For many years, as some people in this room know, I swam in the waters of writing fiction. Luckily, no drowning, mostly treading water. This first poem pays a kind of homage to that, I think. And just one quick explanatory note. It mentions Agnes, which was the first named storm of the 1972 hurricane season, the summer before my high school senior year. So can you hear me okay? Do I need to move things around?
It's good.
Let me just... Okay, how's that?
That's great.
And I will tell you a story. How the tree grew out of the piano. How the piano came to float, upright. One out of the house on Anthracite Ave during those 3 days in June, our Agnes flood splintered the door, wide freeing the black, the white keys from their silent, undone sostenuto extending down the street. How the piano came to the traffic light, corner of Center and Main. How it crossed, made it as far as the dike where it struck, lifted then lodged into that bank of earth, the one that had failed at its first duty to keep the necessary river out. How the piano stayed, unnoticed by the dump trucks bridging the borough, those weeks after the waters receded and everything by then was mud and dust and rust and reek and piles of the ruined and disheveled, a dissonance from every curb prolonged. How the piano remained, seemingly sight unseen. How silt from the spring thaw pressed in, rush and deposit, made a window box of its hammers and strings. How an accidental samara, maple or ash, settled, split, grew a green sprout in 1 year, tremolo stick in 2, a sapling by 5 that would have taken stronger arms than Samson's to root out. How the tree grew and grew and grew. How a lonely woman, one day walking, weeding the dike of trash, came upon it marooned, parted the foliage, scooped her fingers into the damp, once horn bean cords, now crumbling, compost from felt. Noted it was a piano, noted it accompanied a tree. Carried a ladder from her home on the flats to lean against, to climb inside its quiet etudes, serenades, climbed into the honky-tonk topmost branch where she saw, yet again, for the first time, yet again, time and again, the river that remained, pedaling horizontal, overstrung and tonic, loud blood, artery and vein, one more world between the sharp, the flat. I come from what Joe Biden called the worst place on earth, near Scranton, Pennsylvania. So that's sort of a poetic tribute to my home area. Actually, Wilkes-Barre. My next poem is a hendecasyllabic sonnet. So that's poet nerd talk for 11 syllables per line. It repurposes a few nouns, verbs, and ideas from Bob Dylan's song Desolation Row. A song which aficionados in the room will recall also features Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot fighting in a tower. And I have to say, I'd already planned to read this one before the Bob, as I call him, turned all chatty Cathy last week while getting a Grammy Award. And in his 40-minute speech diatribe, he actually talked about his creative process. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's pretty fascinating. He said that for years when he was starting out, he sang all the same folk songs over and over and over. And how when a person sings, "Come all you," the phrase "come all you" a zillion times, well, he said it's no mystery then to leap to writing your own song with these lyrics. Come gather round people wherever you roam and admit that the waters around you have grown. So I hope that my little sonnet ditty that shows the influence Dylan has had on me over the years. Cinderella escapes from Desolation Row, speaks. I might have lived with the tightrope rearranged, unstrung by carnies, bellowing tooth and nail, as if they were dross, cast off, so born to sweep more postcards flipped, while the alphabet went strange, from lusting drainpipes and desolations, praise to glory. Never mind that crowd to spoon-feed beauty, mercy, even great rainbows of trance. But for the poison, the flashing ambulance, late-day stroboscopic, red with fortunes told for every cigarette stoked out in that trunk. The old maid sawed in half. Think curtains, kill. I was too young, detested that room. No soul can blame me, hightailing to avoid the drink. Rain was expected, and the moon next up to sell. It does have rhyme in it. As some of the members of this audience know, my husband, who's not here tonight, spent 2 years living in lovely and isolated Baker City, Oregon, working as the head honcho of the breathtakingly beautiful Wallowa Whitman National Forest. It was a plum job for him, but I stayed behind in Northeast Portland, my choice, and kept the home fires burning and the 2 spoiled cats fed. So he's now back as of October 2014, but this next poem I'm going to read was sort of my self-pitying love poem, I guess, from when he was gone. The Forest God's Wife. Wakes, stretches, shuffles in boiled wool to the sink where she fills the cast iron pot, lentils rinsed and bacon snipped to bits. Cooks the alphabet until it floats on the simmer like a constellation she'll honor with a new name, passionless or bored or lackluster. How she wishes instead to be whispering a martini, its plastic sword and extra olives into the cup of the forest god's hand. But the scullery chores have scoured her out. Far too many toilets scrubbed and laundry baskets hauled. Little now can send her heavenly, pearly. She's even pitched one more martyring pen into the trash. She needs to gouge for guts. Are those the words? Dirty the world in vermouth. It makes her cry. The forest god's wife has forgotten so much she never knew. Needs to scan her stores for even the simplest, how to master a hard-boiled egg. Order up the deli, ham and Swiss on pumpernickel, slaw and a pickle on the side. No, it's her turn to the recipes again and cook until it's time to sweep to sleep. How long ago, she, the moat, left behind in every rented flat with its dusty drapes to hide from jimmying eyes. Even if she preens a new body, eager to soft shoe, skip a crisscross, unbound free, never again more that. The forest god's wife empties the compost, sorts the foil from glass, pinches arugula and thyme, hungers for a plume of feathers to fan, onions tearing a butcher block instead. While the forest god burns regal bird, peacock with his iridescent eye spots, trained to nest on the ground, roost in a soar, seeking canopy, Never mind the brash or storms. Such wilderness, those blue-green trees. This next one's my longest one. I tend to read shorter rather than longer, I promise. I spent 2 decades living in upstate New York, where driving any time of day or night could not only be hazardous but lethal, given the overpopulation of deer who enjoy jumping out in front of moving vehicles. So I wrote this poem as sort of a rejoinder of sorts to the famous deer poem by Oregon's own favorite son, William Stafford, Traveling Through the Door. In print, it's way longer than his poem, because I'm way longer in general. In print, it includes this epigraph: all killer, no filler, which I read somewhere once. That's the fiddler Alison Krauss's favorite compliment for a song, and you'll see why shortly. Speedsville. I'd never have guessed at this present, this version of here and now, mere threat of late April warm, the moon to wax gibbous and tomorrow full. Late being the preferred operative adjective beside my rabbit holes of urgency, this year that ends in the sound of a teen. Prospecting for life, what's truth? The azalea where a robin is painstaking a nest? Behind, I'm the window, blind of lies. But there were no lies that July night. The dark road was a country song home. Alison Krauss did have the chicken pox. She played the gig regardless. It was her birthday. The bartender took a break from bussing the empty Rolling Rock ponies, carried a shot and a cake ablaze, 21 candles to her in that roadhouse corner, fiddling to be a well-heeled stage. My deerskin boots were real, ditto the double-wide mailbox, the grill, the windshield, and that thud, a buck, one seeing eye. I was not speeding when we hit. I was 36 years old, doing 35, 40 at most. Because the music had put me in a mood of drinking, a dog days brew through the open sunroof, a woman feigning free and fly-by-nighter, her teen on a sleepover at his friend's. The moon in its last quarter, curved crescent, waned. But not yet dead and luckily to the side, the buck, his rack straddling the ditch, not the center of West Creek Road, where I became a speck in a tank formerly known as a 1984 Volvo GLE, where every 2-lane offshoot bore the word hill, so my high beams marked Courtright, Howard, Allison, Ford, as I barreled for Speedsville, for the tackle shop phone booth where an operator could still be had for 25 cents. Riddle. How many miles make time the eternal at last? And the answer is that return trip back. To meet the sheriff with his pistol of merciful kill. I don't remember the shot swallowed by then night's appetite. He reassured the carcass would disappear upon dawn, that being a slice of topography's quadrangle where roadkill translated to hide and cured meat. Because even though Cornell paraded its Foucault et Derrida in hoods and robes around the quad, well, take any of a wheel's spokes 10 miles out and you were cruising the hamlets of an edgy Appalachia. Front yards full of bust, chassis streaming their own souped up summer constellations, stars I so miss I want to peel and reel every last evening back. For now even days are refusing to give. Lately veer into little but symptom, diagnosis, the slitting of a body, a friend's 2 ovaries hung like teardrops so infection can be vacuumed out. After the tearing up, no more option for stitches to cast me off, sweet, into an unknowing surrendered whenever I 2-step beyond velvet, the mystery, speeding toward a eucalyptus highway far from central New York. Oh, the sun on lilacs and turquoise pitcher that holds them, yes. What if the answer is swill, then spewed? maybe, what I had, nothing new, nobody I knew, everybody I know in the headlights, how they graze, how they glaze. It's the one last look, blinking with both eyes. Two more shortish poems, but both have intros, sorry. I was glad to hear the jazz earlier. It fits with this poem I decided to read. I have loved the radio all my life. I was clearly born in the wrong era. My next poem was inspired in part by my favorite radio show called Divaville. All of its fans, and we are legion, just learned it's going off the KMHD airwaves in 2 short weeks. The host, Krista Wessel, you probably know her from All Classical FM. She's moving on after 2 decades of being a volunteer DJ. So quickly, what was Divaville, you ask? Here's what her website says. A swelligan show highlighting the great voices recorded between the 20s and 60s. Jazz standards, the American Songbook, Cole Porter tunes, Irving Berlin melodies. It's a program that invites you to kick back with a cocktail or kick up your heels and swing. And it really was that. So I hope my poem does even the teeniest bit of that. A month of Sundays. These July clouds that jewel, they lie. Augur rain, maybe a gust, just a tempering of the heat. Nothing except time unreeled and tempting a sober probe that hankers us back to our days of slack, of rainforest spring. When I couldn't remember the way a light mocks, so strobes the gray. Where a novice seeking embers on the verge would never wend the flagstones, declare dissembling to be a blizzard of embrace. Sentience, how overnight it blurs a jangle into the new with its wet, with its ossuaries of moldy leaf, every wet long ago fallen or trounced, never much heated to febrile sweat, all our brewing gone utterly airy and steeped. Oh, but we march, one foot in front of the other, grow old. A few of us thrilled to wear our denim into this future, aping the prill of a peony in bud, lilacs and azaleas long past, the rain barrel filled by a crying sky. May you live to see another year. May you next time through make a chart of the blooming, pole beam and cosmos, sunflowers crowning, pollinators rocking out a Woodstock frenzy, stages the bee-balm rocket, echinacea in the wings with Bobby Darin, old Mac the knife, now crooning down with love, with Junes, the moons to wrap in cellophane, more July clouds, bejeweled, be live. My final poem. On January 6th, one of my dearest friends died. Laverne had battled breast cancer since 1982, and in the end it was her physical heart that failed her, damaged from so much chemotherapy over the years. In what would end up being our last email chat the week before her death, she wrote to me about a recent Sun magazine interview with David Hinton, who's a renowned translator of Chinese poetry, in which he spoke of the Taoist notion of Zhujian, I may not be saying that right, it roughly translated the constant unfolding of things. I found Hinton's volume of Tufu translations on my bookshelf the day after Laverne died, and I hadn't even remembered I owned it. This poem is called Grief. Just when the pickup may have to shift itself into first, when the scissor and tape aisle at Fred's threatens to seal me in a wall of loss and paper cuts, when it might be my time to lay my body in the mud, lie that I'm ready to be done with this world. When the eyes consult no more, just then I meander my way to the water because nothing else can or will or ever could do. That's when I see the bubbles rising aloft, They contain cloud, flower, bird, cliff. All I am aching, all I am missing, all I am knowing will break, even as they soar, one after another, misshapen yet perfect O's of violet and regret. Even in their dissolution, how they shimmer a grace and brevity and the constant unfolding of things. A man with his magic wand made of clothesline and sticks. A beloved, her beneficence, done. And me now left to wander among scraps, these words chit-chattering in my head. And this was supposed to be a brief ditty about grief, and here I go again, nattering on, wondering if it's time to drag in the billy clubs, the fire bombs, a whip. No, let's leave it. Just the bubbles, their slow motioned ascent. Thank you for listening.
So Nancy has graciously offered to donate any money from book sales tonight to the fund to bring David Meltzer and Julie Rogers to Vancouver. There are two books for sale, including a very cute little chapbook, which is $5, and another book that's $14. So if you'd like to buy a book during our break, oh, she's also going to do 2 for $10. Leah Jackson wanted me to let you know that although things are pretty packed back there, both of the bathrooms are open and operational, so you can use both of those. And if you're not able to join us after the break, the next reading will be on March 12th with Tommy Gaffney as our featured reader. I hope that we'll see you after the break. The break is about 15 to 20 minutes. Buy some wine, buy some books from Nancy, and